Thank you very much to the organizers of this symposium or this conference, this seminar, and for organizing such an event on this important topic. I think that we can learn a lot from the past, and regarding the future, we have, I think, a brilliant future ahead as Basque Americans or Basques from the Basque country itself. So I'm going to share PowerPoint to start with. And I am going to speak. I guess that you all can see it now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to summarize in 20 minutes what the history of a relationship between the Basques and the Americas has been. It is not easy, so I'm going to jump from topic to topic, but I think that it is important to have a general picture of what is this story about. When students, and this story is about this, the legacy of a centuries-old history of networking. I would say that two main characters of the Basques in the Americas in general, of the Basque diaspora, would be networking and cooperation, based on Basque cooperativism, this cooperative spirit that we can see in each Basque center, any organization, a Basque organization in the Americas. When students come to my class the first day, Basque politics, I told them that to tell me who arrived first to the Americas, who was the first person, the first European arriving into the Americas. And well, some students are suspicious since they are in a Basque politics class to saying Columbus or something like that. But some say. So I asked them, well, then what do you think? The Basques arrived into the Americas before or after Christopher Columbus? And few of them say, just because they are in that class, that probably the Basques. When I ask how much time before that, usually they say, well, maybe some years, maybe 100 years. But no one tells me that probably it could be up to 24,000 years before. This is the history of the connections, let's say, of Europeans with the Americas. According to Stanford and Bradley, Europeans, Western Europeans of the time, what we could call, some people call proto-Basques, went on foot to the Americas and colonized the continent up to the American West. But this is prehistory. The history of the Basques in America is very well depicted in this mural in Boise. So here we have in Boise, Idaho, the Basque Block. Here we have well, Christopher Columbus arriving into the Americas already in these three boats. There were some Basques. And then Guernica is a very important milestone in the history of the Basques in the Americas. And today's social, cultural, academic and economic network of units, people, very complex.
Bueno, pues bueno, yo te lo leo y luego interviene Mikel Zakumurko Ayarza, Xavier Irujo, Martín Omuileor, Jim Flesher, Iñaki Gorizelaya, Argia Beristain, Xavier Berrueta, Ibarretxe Gorizelaya, Kirmen Uribe, Hernán Uzcategui, Rafael Anchia.
Sí, Mercedes, mikroak itzali, ez da entzuten. Please, mute the micros.
Okay.
Start the speaker.
Thank you. So, well, these are the two routes, okay? Today, we all go through this route. Historically, the Basques arrived into what we call today the United States. At the time was the Castilian Empire, more than 500 years ago, through this route. And here we have some, landmarks of the Basques in, again, what today we call the United States. This is a list of Basque governors of New Mexico. It is about 1/3 of the total, so we can say that at least 1/3 of the governors of this part of the American West today was governed by Basque people. Some names, among them are Juan de Oñate, Anza, and then after independence, the creation of the United States, Lafitte and Gardoqui are some of the people who we may know. And due to the fact of the concentration phenomenon, this push and pull theory of migration and the concentration phenomenon of all national units, let's say European mostly national units, but also Asian, for example, the Chinese or Vietnamese or Korean, Japanese in the United States, we can say that today the Basque society in the American West is very compact. Meanwhile, we don't have other societies, let's say, except in the New York and Florida. Those are the main spots of Basque habitat in the United States today. And in an already independent United States, the first massive migration of Basques happened due to the gold rush. They were already in this area. It is not that they had to come from Argentina, Uruguay, or other parts of the Americas. They were already there, as we have seen, and that attracted many more people. And these kind of bags, population bags, started to be created. And this is what we know. The Basque America that we know today is the Basque America of the sheep herders. It is not any longer that way. Today, it is not anymore sheep herders, let's say, society, but it was just one generation ago, and there are still people owning ranches and everything. This is what we can call the era of the Basque sheep herders, which started in 1840 and went all along to the 1970s, 1980s. So very few years ago. And after 1876, the first Basque centers were created, and this is not by chance. 1876 is the end of the Second Carlist War, and there is an important political, let's say, political element on that. Okay, once the Basque territories in the Basque homeland lost independence, then the first big units of organization in South America, especially the first Basque center was created in Uruguay at that very year, were created with a very clear political vision. And so from the very beginning, these Basque centers were not only social or cultural environments, but also political. And in the United States, the phenomenon is a little bit different. Here we don't have Basque centers, but a generation after, the boarding houses were created. These boarding houses worked as hotels. And in this case, yes, they were mostly cultural and social places for gathering. But the Basque Country as such, Basque Country came to the international arena and also to the American political scene after the bombing of Guernica. The bombing of Guernica was what triggered the presence of the Basques as a nation in American politics and also in the American society. After the bombing of Guernica, I have counted about 7,000 articles, newspaper articles, that were published in the period of 2 months after the bombing, speaking of the bombing itself. And that led to a long list of articles, hundreds of articles, on the Basques as a nation. No one knew really at the time what the Basques were, where they were coming from, what was their political issue with the Axis. And that was fostered by World War II, when Spain, in this case Franco's dictatorship, became an ally of the Axis. Franco met with Hitler in the Basque Country in 1940, and then with Mussolini, and also with Petain and other Axis leaders all over Europe. The vision, this view of the Basques changed a lot at international level. So for the first time, the Basque government that had been created in October, the autonomous Basque government that was created under the lead of José Antonio Aguirre, of President José Antonio Aguirre, Lehendakari Aguirre, in 1936, started signing international agreements. That was the first time in 200 years. Before, obviously, the different governments of the Navarres, the Kingdom of Navarre, such kingdom, and Vizcaya, Guipúzcoa, the rest of the vast territories had international relations, but not for 200 years. This is the first time that it happens again. And in this case, the relationship started with the Great Britain, with the United Kingdom. United Kingdom was facing the Axis, and they needed help. And in that case, the Basque government, in this case through Irujo, signed this agreement after 1 month of negotiations with the British government. The agreement was titled Most Secret Formula and was basically this. The Basque government would help the Allies in their fight for liberty and democracy against the Axis with 2,000 men, 2,000 secret agents. And in exchange, the United Kingdom is going to accept the independence of a Basque state. And well, it is 4 points. It was signed in July 1940. It was agreed upon on July, I think it was 24, 1940, in the house of Lord Boothby, acting as the British, obviously, Prime Churchill. And in the other side, Aguirre was disappeared at the time, were Lizaso and Irujo. And that was signed. That was never implemented, obviously, and but that led to the cooperation agreements once Aguirre reappeared after his odyssey, hidden in Berlin, indeed, from the Nazis. He reappeared and he implemented the agreements with the North America, with the United States government, with the American governments. The basics of that agreement are exactly the same as in the case of the agreement with the British government. And with the exception of the clause, the point on independence. But that brought, obviously, Basque politics to Washington, D.C., to Capitol Hill. And these agreements were very, very active. We don't know how many agents were working for the Basque government with the allies, in this case with the Americans, with the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, but probably by the hundreds, close to 1,000 agents working all over the Americas against the Axis. It is important to notice that these agreements were enforced until 1949. Far after World War II was over. And that brought again light to everything dealing with the Basques, not only their history, but also their political situation, their aspirations, political aspirations, their aim to independence, and many other topics that before 1937 were completely unknown. And that generated also a tradition. Since 1937 and all over the years today, there are international relations, para-diplomatic, if you want, international relations between the Basque government and different American governments, different state governments, such as, for example, the state of Idaho, California, Nevada, or also the United States as such. That ended precisely here in Nevada. Agreements, Secret Services agreements, the agreement with the United States ended here in Nevada by the hand of Pat McCarran. Pat McCarran was a senator of Nevada and very influential in Washington, D.C. as well. And he saw for the first time that it was more interesting for the United States government to sign an agreement of collaboration with the Francoist dictatorship rather than keep on going with the Basques and also the Spanish Republic. The Spanish Republic by the time didn't have any substantial structure. And that was the end. And that was called by the Basque a blue division to Korea because of well, many reasons that I don't have time here to explain. And that gave rise to this photograph, but this also generated the second big impact of relations, let's say, between the United States and the Basque Country. On the one side, after 1959, in the 60s, the first Americans, let's say, leaders of this society started to bloom. And the first Jaialdis were organized. The first one was organized here in Reno in 1959 by the Laxalt brothers, Ascuaga, Echevarria, and so many other prominent members of the Basque Society. And the same thing started to happen all over the American West. So at the same time that the political agreements went down, the society, the cultural society, the Basque cultural society started to bloom, started to grow. And it is in this context, and especially after the bombing of Guernica, the Burgos trials were an atomic bomb, let's say, in the Basque-American relations. And that triggered many things, but especially the Burgos trials triggered Pete Senarruza's involvement in Basque politics. He was a politician from Idaho. He was the Secretary of State of the state of Idaho for 32 years, and he brought to the political arena, to the Basque political arena, many American politicians, among them Frank Church. And then, again, that network of cultural centers, social units, academic also institutions all over and all along the Americas started to work together. In this case, against the last years of the dictatorship. Here we have, for example, Senator Church visiting Caracas, the center, the Basque Center in Caracas. And here we have up to 500 students in the Basque school in Caracas. I was here just in the middle of this picture, which is in the archive of Boise State. And well, this is how we reach today. Okay, the situation today is basically the legacy of all that. So we have a huge network of Basque centers, not only in the United States, but all over the Americas, as I have said, in communication, in constant communication through what today is already an institutional relationship to the Basque government. And this is the Basque Center, for example, in San Francisco, one of the biggest in the Americas in general, but also here in the United States or in the American West. We have also academic units at Boise State, at the University of Santa Barbara, in several universities in the area of New York, in the United States, but also all over the Americas through the Etxepare Institute, which again today is institutionalized. But there is institutionalized because there was a network in the past. And also we have organizations. In the case of the United States, obviously the NABO, which is networking. The NABO was created in 1973 here in Reno at the Center for Basque Studies. That was an idea that John Bilbao brought from Argentina, from the FEBA, the Organization of Basque Center and Basque Societies in Argentina. And it has worked and is still working very well. Today there are more than 50, let's say, member organizations within the NABO that has about 2 to 3 meetings every year, and well, it pushes the Basque presence in the United States and also the Basque activity in all these places in which these societies are established. And to finish, we have a legacy, an important legacy to the past. Everything we have today is owed to these people who well, dedicated their efforts and their lives to generate this massive network that we call the Basque diaspora. It is not only that there are Basques in the Americas, it is that they are organized, they are in communication, that they have institutions that work together in order to keep this diaspora alive and functioning. So this is the Boise Cemetery, a big example of what I am saying. And I think that this is what I can say in 20 minutes as for the history of the Basques in the Americas. Now I allow you to make us questions, any questions as you want. Thank you very much. Mila Oscar.